It's time! Sorry for those of you who knew this video was happening back in September and then had to wait until now. I had most of the art done for the video until I realized I didn't like it, so I redid them. And I'm happy I did because they look much better. Alas, I did not have time to do all of the WINX, so I'll definitely be making a part 2 eventually. For now, this video will be my idea for a WINX Club reboot. It will mostly be a rundown of my hypothetical Season 1 that I wrote based on the original WINX Club. This isn't a rewrite for the new one since I wrote this before the reboot came out. And I'm glad I did, cause that was not good. Thankfully, it didn't change the script that much. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, starting off with Bloom here. You can see a lot has definitely changed about her design. So originally I had created her design to look like this in the first redesign video I did. And when I made that video, I was still developing my style and changing it, so things look very different now. I'll admit that I don't really like that art simply because of how different it is compared to what I'm doing now. But anyway, when I was coming up with a design for this video, I ended up settling on this, but then, of course, as I said previously, I did not like the way it turned out. But I did like a specific part, and that was her hair being shorter. I don't know what it is, but I just really liked the idea of Bloom having a short cut, or I guess it's more of a medium haircut, as opposed to her much longer hair in the original show. And I think it'd be cool if, like, her hair could grow out throughout the series to eventually match its length. And then besides that, the rest of her design, I wanted to keep her bell bottoms. Those are basically her most iconic feature in her original design. But then I wanted to add a bunch of little stars everywhere and a nice, like, cozy jacket to fit the whole thing together. Because her just having denim was definitely not a good idea, and I don't know why I was doing that in the first place. But as for the story, which I said we will be getting into, I'm gonna have to start with some little world-building details. So one of the biggest things I see people bring up with WINX Club specifically is stuff about how Althea only has girl fairies. Like, where are the boy fairies? Do boy fairies even exist? And the same goes for the specialists at, I think it's called Red Fountain. I don't have it in my notes, so I'm just gonna see in editing if it's right. But then people ask, hey, why are there only boy specialists? So I have come up with a very simple solution for this. They are not the only schools out there. Althea and Red Fountain interact with each other because they are in close proximity, but Althea is a girls-only fairy school, and Red Fountain is a boys-only specialist school. This is the easiest solution I could think of without, like, changing up too much. And I did mention those schools are in close proximity, which is why they interact, but there is a third school that is also nearby, Cloud Tower. So there are many fairy schools and many specialist schools in this magical fairy world, but there is only one witch school, and that is Cloud Tower. The reason there's only one is because, you know, we're focusing on classism here. We're bringing classism into WINX Club, even though it was already kind of there, and they just never really did anything with it. But the witches, they aren't really well liked. So when they opened up a school, the other two schools were like, whatever. It's not like they can, you know, stand up to us or anything. So over time, Cloud Tower just existed until eventually it caught wind of a specific competition. So this is set up for the first season, but I wanted it to start with it's kind of like a sports festival tournament arc. Think like what they did in Equestria Girls. Althea and Red Fountain, they have this friendly sports competition between their students every school year. It's a way for the students to interact and show off their different sets of skills. There are specific challenges that they have to be completable regardless of who you are, whether you're a fairy or a person or whatever. It's just meant to be a fun little competition until Cloud Tower came into the picture. So the only reason Cloud Tower was allowed to participate is because the other two schools thought, this will be our chance of showing those witches that we're so much better than them, only to be shocked when the witches actually held up in the competition. And so, since that happened, things have been rather fair. I mean, each school has an even chance of winning, until recently. The past 4 years, the witches have won every single competition, and that is because of a specific trio of witches that we'll get into later. I'm sure you can already guess who it is. Okay, setup aside, now we can actually get back into discussing Bloom. So, I don't want the origin of her story to change all that much. She starts off as a normal human girl, and then she gets a bike, and she's like, harumph, I wanted a Vespa, or whatever. And then she meets Stella after a monster, and yeah, not much changes from that. I think that's a really solid setup for this kind of story. And then as Bloom enters the school, you know, they quickly find out, oh, she's not actually a magical princess, but she's still allowed to stay at the school because it's like, ooh, mysterious fire powers, yeah, okay, now we're on to the new stuff. I know I kind of skimmed over that, but I mean, if you don't know about the beginning of WINX Club, then I don't know if you should be watching this video. Anyways, so Bloom enters the school and quickly meets all of her roommates, you know, Stella, Tecna, Musa, Aisha. I know that she has like 2 different names, but we're going with Aisha here. And of course, her. And she brings Kiko with her since Kiko exists. They're just a regular bunny though. I'm gonna be honest, I am kind of freaked out by Kiko's design. I just think, I don't like when animals are given really big anime eyes. It really freaks me out. It's not supposed to look like that. It's not supposed to have big eyes. Get it away from me. So very quickly, Bloom learns about this competition, and she's a bit worried about participating since, well, at the moment, she doesn't really have access to her magical powers yet, or she can't really control it that well. But the others reassure her, like, oh, don't worry, you still have a chance, but the older students have a different mindset. See, since they've been losing every year since the Tricks have joined Cloud Tower, they don't really have much hope that they're actually gonna win the competition this year. So most of the older students are just like, well, whatever, they'll be gone next year, then we'll actually have a chance. But the younger students are the group that still think, hey, maybe we can win. We just gotta do the power of teamwork or whatever. And so Bloom and her friends are in this group. Of course, there's also a bit of classism thrown in, but since Bloom wasn't born in the fairy world, she doesn't actually understand why people hate the witches so much. And when she asks questions, her friends are like, you know what? We don't actually know either. And since, you know, there might be a suspicion that Bloom isn't a fairy, some of her friends, like Stella, try to avoid the topic altogether. Speaking of Stella, so I think setting up the dynamic of the WINX is mostly gonna be the focus of the first few episodes, hypothetical episodes, I guess. But something I see a lot with, like, Stella and the way she's characterized is her just being a spoiled brat. And I don't know if it's just my memory playing tricks on me, but I remember watching this show as a kid, and I never really got that. I always, like, yeah, of course Stella is a pretty vain character, but as a kid, at least, I remembered her at least being, like, a supportive friend. And I mean, in every interpretation of her afterwards, she just keeps leaning into that stereotype. So we're gonna do the opposite of that. We are going to have Stella, I mean, not exactly the opposite. Yes, she is still pretty vain. She still doesn't quite understand how regular social norms work since, you know, she's a princess, she's rich, she's a magical fairy, she's a lot of things. But Stella really cares about her friends, and when she notices that she's making her friends feel unappreciated, she will do everything in her power to rectify it because she is a good friend, and I don't want otherwise. And she is the one who, first and foremost, is on Bloom's side. I mean, she's the one that brought Bloom there. Whenever people are like, oh, but what if Bloom is, like, not actually a fairy? Stella's the one to say, hey, it doesn't matter if she's not a fairy, because she's our friend, so shush. So she's gonna be, like, the biggest Bloom supporter at first until Bloom gets to know all the others. So for this first hypothetical season, I want to focus mostly on 3 characters, which is Bloom, of course, Stella, and Tecna. I'll get into Tecna in a bit, but the reason I want to focus on Bloom and Stella is simply because they have the most importance in this initial plot line. And of course, we'll eventually start learning more about the other characters. They're still there, but we're focusing more on those three. But for now, back on topic with the whole sports competition, of course, the witches aren't too confident themselves about what they're gonna do, because the tricks have basically been taking over the competition from everyone, including other witches. So whenever they want to try to strategize, the tricks are like, oh, but we'll just win anyway, so you don't actually have to do anything. So when it starts, the only ones participating are Bloom, Stella, and Aisha. The other three are just sitting out because they don't really want to participate. Also, I just realized I forgot to mention Flora. She'll have her moment later, I swear. But either way, throughout the competition, Bloom continues to be, like, a very good sport overall, and she even is, like, cheering for the witches whenever they get a win, which, of course, weirds out a lot of people there, including the witches, who are not sure why this fairy is being nice to them. So they keep going through the competition, and eventually, the tricks are summoned by Griffin, who is going to be the primary antagonist for this hypothetical season. Look, I don't really understand why Griffin was never made into a bad guy, since she is the leader of Cloud Tower, the witches, the tricks. They're doing mischievous things, and yet she doesn't have a role in any of that. X to doubt. So in this version, she does have a major role. She's the one that's coming up with this whole scheme and using the tricks as basically her lackeys. But she tells them that she wants them to steal Stella's ring during this competition, since it contains a piece of the dragon flame, which will be important for their evil scheme. So partway through the competition, the school is hosting like a little party to celebrate the fact that, hey, we're actually doing pretty well this year. There's a chance we might be able to win. But Bloom isn't feeling too happy since she doesn't have her powers still, and she's hearing the whispers. She knows people are wondering, hey, what if she's a witch? What if that's the reason she's being so friendly to other witches? And she doesn't really know what to think, but her thoughts are quickly interrupted when she goes outside and is confronted by the tricks, who have decided to do a little detour from their ring-stealing scheme to taunt her, because they're like, hey, you have no idea what you're doing, you don't know anything about our lives, so what makes you think you can do anything about it? And then of course they attack her, and then she unlocks her cool dragon flame powers, and the tricks are forced to retreat. But Griffin isn't mad. Griffin hears their story and realizes that Bloom is the secret holder of the dragon flame, which is even better for their plan than just a tiny little piece in Stella's ring. So, their plans have changed. Anyway, now that Bloom has unlocked her powers, it makes getting through the rest of the competition much easier, especially since the tricks have mysteriously dropped out of the competition. This was due to Griffin wanting them to just lay low after attacking Bloom on her school campus. But of course the other witches aren't prepared for this, so the fairies and the specialists quickly make it to the finale. And throughout this entire competition, the main cast are going to be interacting with the main cast of boys from Red Fountain, all those fellas. And most importantly, Sky is looking at Bloom and going like, ooh, she's pretty cute though. But he withholds himself due to certain drama. So I think I should get into that now. So we're going with the whole thing of, Sky is engaged to Stella, but instead of being with him, she is with Brandon, who is pretending to be Prince Sky, and Brandon isn't actually too happy about that, since he's like, hey, dude, I really like my girlfriend, and I don't really like lying to my girlfriend, so could you do something about it? But Sky, at this point in time, is quite the pushover and isn't willing to really stand up to his father about this whole thing. Of course, Stella will find out, and that will be the crux of her character arc this season, is her having to confront her mother and tell her, hey, I know I'm supposed to marry this guy, but I like Brandon, and I'm gonna be with Brandon, and you can't do anything about it. And her mother is like, well, is he rich? And it's like, yeah. Well, okay then. And that's resolving the first part of Stella's character arc. Of course, standing up to your parent once isn't going to fix all the other stuff you gotta deal with. Since Stella's meant to be the heir of an entire kingdom, she has a lot of pressure put on her. And then, so Sky thinks he's free for now, but there will be a little hurdle thrown into it. I don't really want to focus too much on all the relationship drama at the start of the season, simply because I feel like pushing that off into a season 2 would be much better. You know, I think focusing on the girls and their relationships is far more important for a first potential season. And there's other plot stuff going on. But either way, there is going to be some setup for all that. Like, Sky sees Bloom in the competition. They both make it to the finals, and he's like, man, she's so cool, maybe I should go easy. But he doesn't go easy because Bloom is actually really good at this. And she ends up winning the competition of her own volition. And of course, he does get teased by his friends who are like, hey, so did you throw the competition? And he's like, nope. And they're like, okay, cool. But anyways, then Bloom is left to spend more time with her friends, including Tekna. I should probably go over why Tekna is also a focus of this season. It's not much for story reasons like Stella and Bloom, but it's more for like the personal moments of interactions that all the characters have in their downtime. So in this version, Tekna is non-binary, straight up. I said Althea is an all-girls school, but it's mostly just a no boys allowed school. Tekna's allowed to attend the school because they're like, well, yeah, sure, we may be classist, but we're not homophobic. And we're also leading into Tekna having autism, that whole angle. So that's kind of why she's the focus for personal reasons, and it's because at first, most of the cast don't really know how to talk to Tekna due to her disability. I want it to be where Musa and Tekna were friends before attending Althea, so Musa is the one that understands what she means when she says stuff that others might think is out of pocket. So the other cast members will slowly learn more about Tekna and slowly come to appreciate their friend despite having some awkward interactions with her. Because I think it's important to show that happen. I know the reboot isn't supposed to be in this script, but I don't like how quickly the characters just became friends without actually addressing specific issues that they had with each other. Like, they literally just started getting along as a group, and then Bloom just like dips out, and then they show up like, oh, we're actually here, we're your friends, and it's like, where did this come from? Who are you people? Why are you here? Their personal relationships should be focused on a lot more, which, like I said, is the biggest reason the romance should be put off for now, since if a character's arc is focused around the boy they're getting with, then they don't really have a very convincing arc. Anyways, that's all I really have to say about Tekna because we have more important story stuff to be going on. So, the Tricks failed their initial task, that's fine. Now they have to figure out a way to get the dragon flame from Bloom. So, they cook up a scheme. Basically, the equivalent of fairy spring break is rolling around, and Bloom wants to go visit her family for the first time in months. So she goes through the portal and enters her home, only for something to be off. Her family isn't there. They were supposed to be there. And if you haven't guessed by now, the Tricks have kidnapped Bloom's parents and are basically holding them ransom, saying she has to give up part of her dragon flame if she wants them to be safe. Now at this point, Bloom isn't sure what the dragon flame is, so when they ask for her to hand it over, she says she doesn't know how. She doesn't really know how it works. So the Tricks are kind of annoyed until Griffin herself shows up and explains to Bloom that her power is the dragon flame, something that Bloom hasn't actually learned about yet, let alone heard of, because every character that knows about the dragon flame has kind of been keeping it under the wraps. So Bloom gives up part of her dragon flame to get her parents rescued, and immediately heads back to Althea to report what's going on. At this point, this is when Farragonda would finally explain to Bloom what the dragon flame is, telling her that it was something that fueled the kingdom of Domino before the kingdom was eventually frozen over by an evil coven of witches, and that the princess of said kingdom had been holding the power of the dragon flame in secret since then. So now Bloom is like, oh my god, I'm a princess, wow! But then also, now the witches have the dragon flame, and so they don't know what's going to happen next. But I do, here's what's gonna happen next. So of course, they're going to do that whole creating an army of evil spooky creatures and stuff. And a little side tangent, those things scared the absolute shit out of me when I was a kid. Like, I couldn't finish the finale because I was too scared of those things. But now I'm not. Now I can stand up to these not actually that scary monsters. But anyway, Griffin gathers up her students and tells them, hey, today is the day we are going to take down the fairies, starting with Althea. And surprisingly, not all the witches are on board with this. And that is because of Bloom. Her efforts earlier on during the competition made them realize that not all fairies hate them. And maybe they shouldn't try to destroy the fairies if they want a chance of actually, getting along with them. Since this is still meant to be kind of a kid's show, so gotta simplify the resolution a bit. But Griffin is not on board with her students not wanting to do that. Any student who disagreed with her plan were locked away in Cloud Tower, being held prisoner. And those that were a part of the plan went with Griffin, the Tricks, and their army to Althea. Now, Althea and Red Fountain caught on to this happening, so they quickly gathered together and are now defending the school in an all-out battle. Meanwhile, Bloom is feeling helpless. Since she gave away part of her power, she feels weaker. She feels like she can't do as much as her friends are. And this is when she finally gets a vision of Daphne. I wanted to put it off till now so it could be like a hook for later on in the hypothetical series. But Daphne shows up and tells Bloom that the power of the dragon flame is within her, and it will always be within her. She is the only one who can stop this conflict from happening, and she must do it if she wants to keep her friends safe. Basically, Daphne gives Bloom a pep talk. And so, Bloom goes out and uses her powers in order to put a stop to the army. Basically, each soldier has a tiny bit of the dragon flame within them, and so Bloom uses her powers to withdraw that, to basically turn them to ash. And after their plan fails, the Tricks and Griffin quickly turn tail and leave. But now that the headmistress of Cloud Tower is gone, all the students are left without a place to go. And after Cloud Tower is unsealed and the rest of the students are freed, Farragonda makes an uncalled for statement and says that all the students from Cloud Tower will be allowed to attend Althea to continue their magical training. And if any of them don't fit the criteria to join the all-girls school, she will make sure that they are accepted into a separate institute to learn magic. Because if it wasn't obvious by some witches not wanting to take down Althea, there are good ones, and there are bad ones. Same with fairies, same with specialists. And she wants to give them a chance to learn and grow in an environment that doesn't foster hatred. And so, witches will be attending during the next school year, and that's going to be a status quo shift for that school. And of course, Bloom is really excited because she's like, yay, I have my powers back, I'm actually a princess, this is so cool. And this gives Sky the idea of, hey, she's a princess, maybe I can convince my dad to let me get with her. Like I said, I want to do a part 2, so we'll get into that wrench later, because I have some ideas. I have quite a few, actually. But yeah, that's the basic rundown of what a hypothetical reboot season 1 would look like for these characters. Normally I focus a lot more on a hypothetical pilot and then give a rundown of the rest of the series, but for this, the pilot would be very similar to the original show. I didn't really want to rehash all that information, because I'm guessing if you're watching this, you already know about how the series starts. But then, of course, it'll end off with a little teaser of the Tricks hiding out. So the Tricks have been outcasted, and a big reason behind that is they're adults now. Like, I mentioned that they have been winning the competition for 4 years now, and that's because the other cast members are like 15 years old, they're teenagers. I wanted the Tricks to be 17 and they turn 18, like, by the end of the series, because I am not a fan of, oh, look at these children who are being forced into this dilemma by a figure in power above them. Ooh, look how evil and irredeemable they are. Ooh, I'm not really a big fan of that kind of angle. I mean, yeah, they're still young adults, but I wanted them to be older, that way their decisions feel like something they can be held accountable for mostly. I mean, they're still being enticed by Griffin the whole time, you know, she's their mentor, she's their leader, but that will quickly change as we are introduced to another villain who wants to recruit the Tricks in order to destroy Bloom and her friends. But we'll get into that in a part 2. Like I said, I have too many ideas to fit into one video, so we'll have to do that later. But yeah, so since I've given the rundown, I should probably actually mention my ideas for these characters' designs. You've just been watching me draw them the whole time as I yap. So I've already explained Bloom's, but for Stella, I wanted her to have more of a breezy, summery outfit to match her sun theme. And for Techna, I wanted them to have a very androgynous style, but one that still had like a unique enough silhouette, which is why I added a giant jacket. I just thought it would look really cool. And as for the Tricks, I do think their original casual outfits were really good. So I just wanted to tweak it from there. Like, I kept Darcy's pants since I really like the spiderweb pants, but then I wanted to add extra markings on it that made it kind of look spidery, you know? And I also did that with her hair. Like, I don't know if you can see what I mean. I wanted her to have some spidery themes to her, mostly because darkness is a lot harder to personify with a symbol than just like ice or storms. So I just added that in for simplicity's sake. For Icy, I just gave her a giant puffer fluffy jacket so that it looks like, you know, despite the ice, she is slaying, but in a comfortable way. Stormy had the most changes in her design, and that's mostly because I wanted her to look the least mature. See, I'm basing this more off of the first 3-ish, 4-ish seasons of the show. I am not counting that whole thing they added later on where they aren't actually sisters. No, they are sisters. They are triplets, in fact. They're all the same age, except they all have different roles. Icy is the leader, Darcy is the most mature, and Stormy is the least mature but the strongest overall. Like, she can definitely dish out a lot of damage, but she's often rushing into battles she can't even win without the help of her sisters. Icy's usually the one commanding them and making sure their plans go smoothly, while Darcy is the support, making sure her sisters don't get in over their heads and completely screwed over during a fight. I'm definitely skimming over a lot of stuff, but you know, trying to summarize a hypothetical first season, it would take a lot more time than what I'm trying to give it right now. So, yeah. What did y'all think? Would you be interested in more? As I've said, I have way more ideas than what was mentioned in this video, and that's probably because I've been working on it for longer than my other videos, but it was fun. I'm very happy with how the designs turned out, and I can say that they are, in fact, teenager approved. Source, I live with one, and she is very into fashion. So if you do want to see a part 2, let me know in the comments. There are some other videos I want to make first, but if this does well enough, I'll do it. So, yeah. Bye.